We can just look at you. That's fine.
No, I'd prefer to look at you. How are you, Nick? Thanks for coming on my show. I appreciate it.
I'm doing well. Everybody, Andy of Black Veil Brides, how you doing today, man? How's life?
I'm good. I have a short window here between we did the South American tour, and then I had a really lovely trip to Portugal. It was my first ever sort of vacation. My sister-in-law got married.
Congratulations.
And my wife and I went to Portugal and had a lovely experience, and now I understand why people vacation. I'd never been on a vacation before.
Never.
Both of us are artists, and we never even went on a honeymoon. We both just went on tour after the wedding. So
wow.
This was our first. We've been together for 12 years. Going on 13 years.
That's our first. Andy, we need a clap for that. Come on, that's amazing.
Thank you. Yesterday was our 8-year anniversary of being married.
Wow.
And it was in all that time, it was our first vacation. So it was really lovely. And now I've got about a day or two before I head out to start rehearsals for the U.S. Bleeders tour.
The U.S. tour. Well, add so much to unpack. So you've. Like, does tour almost feel like is that get enough of, okay, I went outside of home and explored the world, so you don't feel like you need a vacation?
I thought so.
Okay.
For years, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't like to admit when I'm wrong.
Oh, okay.
But I'm going to do it exclusively here on your show, Nick.
Thank you.
I for years, because I have toured since I was a teenager.
Right.
When we first got quote unquote big, I was 18, 19 years old. And so my experiences were, oh my God, I'm going to all these countries, or oh my God, all this stuff's happening. And then you do it again and again and again.
Right.
And my relationship to going to a country is to play a show. And I have been to so many places, and I have so many, quote unquote stamps in the passport, but I really admittedly haven't seen anything because especially after I got sober, my primary focus when going on tour is I want to put on the best show possible, and I want to give people what they're paid for. And so if I have a day off, I try to prioritize, exercise, sleep, trying to stay in as good of shape as possible. And I don't really go out and do anything. And so while, yes, I've been everywhere, I've seen nothing. So I kind of was a little bit glib about it. And I thought, I've been to Portugal. It's wonderful, but I've already seen it. And then I went for a week and had a vacation-like experience where you actually go and see things and sightsee and do stuff. And I was like, I've never really been anywhere. So now I realize that.
So it's just, like, do you have any places you went that you now look back on and you're like, damn, I wish I like kind of went outside the hotel, like just even if it was down the street to like go see something.
Well,
cool?
What's something that occurred to me is I've always thought very fondly of Australia, and I think in some ways that's because my first experiences with Australia were there's a festival that used to happen called Soundwave,
right? And
it was 1 million bands, and we would all descend upon Australia. And the way that it was booked was you would stay in a hotel in the city for like 3 days before the festival happened.
Really?
And then you'd play the show because every city in Australia is so far from each other.
Right.
To get all of the many, imagine like a download size festival that's traveling across this very large country with minimal cities. So all the bands, we would fly in several days early. So in those times, like Ask Alexandria were on a lot of them, and we were really close with them, always still are, but in the early days we were always touring together and spending a lot of time together. So I remember like Danny and I going around and seeing stuff, and walking the streets, and they would throw events for the bands at the bars, and so you saw shit. And so because of that, and that was also like in the days when I was getting blacked out all the time. So I can only imagine now I would enjoy it that much more, because every time I've subsequently gone back,
ironically, you would see more stuff, but you wouldn't have time to see it because of the blacking out, I guess. You can't see it.
Yeah. Right. I tried to fight the ocean, the Indian Ocean.
The Australian Ocean, specifically.
The Indian Ocean, in, I think it was Perth, and I'm a notable ocean hater.
Just
go way back.
Just because of the sea life, or like
it's for us.
It's not.
I think it's for the beings that live in it, and I think that our hubris, it really is on full display when we try to fuck around in the ocean.
That's fair.
And so,
Yeah.
I guess in this moment, I thought I'm going to show man's strength against the ocean. And, like when you're, this probably happens. If you're blacked out, you don't remember it, right? But someone will tell you that you came up with an idea. And then you repeat that phrase over and over again. And at some point in my mind, I'm going to fight the ocean became sort of a
thing. Right.
A thing that I was saying. And then I went and did it. And the thing about it is, the shallow waters of the Indian Ocean at night are known to be exceedingly dangerous because they are filled with sharks.
Oh, so you
and
did
there's
this at
actually
night.
signs, which had I gone down during the day, I could have seen that say, don't fucking come in here. Like, don't bother. But I did, and I didn't get eaten by a shark. And here I am. Manifesting the destiny of coming on the Nick Nocturnal show for the second time.
So you don't fuck with water. Me either, because guess what? We don't have fins. We're for land. Do you fuck with sky?
I jump into the sky I fly all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So that's
not physically. I get into a metal tube and then it throws me into the air to a different city on a pretty much weekly basis.
That makes sense. Because we're not meant to fly either. So that's why
No, but I have no choice in the matter. The thing is, I can choose not to be in the ocean pretty much all the time.
Do you think teleportation is coming soon? Like, are we closer?
Boy, from your lips to God's ears, Nick, because I would love the amount of time that I spend in airports. I would love to just be able to get to where I'm going to without dealing with all of that.
Is it ever have you ever had a good airport experience? Because I don't think it's possible for a human to go to the airport and have a good time. Have you ever had a good airport experience where it was memorable? You're like, wow, this was a pleasant day.
Well, I moved like 2,000 miles away from where my business is. Okay. So I have to fly just all the fucking time, which is sort of the trade-off of living somewhere else. And I really enjoy where we live, but both of us, me and Lilith, we both have to fly to LA constantly or different places. And so I think I've just become numb to being in the airport because I never used to really think about it. But now there's a problem when not only which are the faster lanes in the TSA and the different terminals, but the employees that work in those terminals and the gate agents. I'm now like everyone that works at the Tampa airport, I've clocked them at least once.
You're in Tampa?
Right now I am.
I'm in Orlando. That's so funny.
You?
Yeah. I moved down here from the Canada. Hey, buddy. Fucking
okay, yeah, that's right. I thought you were Canadian last time we talked. No, you're not anymore.
No, I'm not. I'm no longer Canadian. Yeah,
you have to. That's how it works, right? You have to revoke your citizenship.
Yeah, they took my hey there, bud, and my sorry, and exchanged it for a hell yeah, brother, and fuck you. That's what I got.
They take your health care and give you truck nuts.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. That's what goes on here. Okay? I've been here for 3 months.
Okay.
Are alligators alive? Because chat keeps telling me I'm supposed to have seen an alligator by now, and I feel like I've been lied to.
You're in the most landlocked major city in Florida. Okay. So I don't know. You don't. And the other thing is, I live by water, which is a great irony of me being an ocean hater.
Yeah, and beating up the ocean at some point.
Near water. You live near Disney and freeways. I don't really know. Nothing against the great people of Orlando, but as a place. I'm not certain of its appeal.
Do you fuck with Disney?
Do I go to Disney?
Yeah. Like not like on a business. I mean like just as a consumer of cartoony things and the life of Disney? Are you about that Disney life?
I'm not about it. I just am not an avid goer. I have been and I've enjoyed it every time, but it's not in the things that I do. You don't have to understand, Nick, that I don't love being around people that much. So
that's fair.
Going to a place that is a giant celebration of people being around can be difficult for someone with a particular afflictions that I suffer from.
How is the vibe because for every musician there's different.
It's weird because I like shows. So I don't know what that sort of loophole is.
Have you ever thought about playing a show at Disney?
Like illegal, like the Beatles on the roof sort of thing, like setting up in downtown Disney?
I didn't go that route, but let's go that route. Yeah, like that.
Well, if I can give you a segue that I think is pretty deft,
Okay.
I think that the reason that I most wanted to do this very violent Sweeney Todd themed EP
Yes.
is to be able to go to downtown Disney and play it for all the children there, and so I think it would react well.
I think so. Bro, kids are like 3 years old on TikTok now. Like they're exposed to crazy stuff compared to what we had to grow up
Kids
with.
are 3 years old on TikTok.
I chat. I don't know. Chat that has kids. Do you have kids? You don't have kids, right? Do you have kids?
I don't. But
Yeah.
do you have? When you say they're 3 years old on TikTok, okay, you mean that there are 3 years old. They are 3 years old, and they are.
I'm assuming every young person in the world right now somehow magically has an iPhone or an iPad, and they're on TikTok. That is what I assume all of every young person from the age of 3 to 20 plus.
Okay, that's probably true.
That's my assumption. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Just like I
Do
assume.
you like that I haven't yes-anded this subject at all, and I'm just sort of crashing it into the ground?
I love it.
But yeah. I'm testing out what it's like for the vast majority of musicians in interviews where they just sort of answer things with like a one-word thing, and then just there's that silence where no one knows what to do.
Yeah.
I
love
I've
that.
never done it because I can't stop talking. That's another affliction that I have. But I did want to test it out. So ask me a question, and I'll do like a standard musician answer.
Okay. What wins? Alligator versus shark. But you have to be realistic. So like you got to do the PowerPoints of each animal here.
Shark.
Why?
No, see, you're not doing good.
Okay.
You did a bad job at the premise. I gave you a premise
Right.
that was the conceit was you're going to give me some generic question and I'm going to give you a bullshit answer. What you did ask me is something that does bring me into a very Andy answer, which is
Chat, yes, we're joined today with Andy Biersack of Black Veil Brides. Andy, it's so fun to have you on the show again today because like I remember when I had you on last time, we did emo TikTok, and I have to ask you the question. Do you know what an emo girl is yet? Have we figured it out? It's been a year.
So I think that I was a little misunderstood.
Okay.
And it isn't that I don't understand contextually what an emo girl or boy or anything is.
Okay.
But rather that I feel that, particularly at the time in which you and I were talking last, there was a sort of odd cultural thing going on where anything that is remotely sort of alternative in any way was getting labeled
as emo. That's true. Yeah.
Which actually started really at the very beginning of the genre, right?
Yeah.
Like the idea of what is an emo band, because as I said before, when we're coming out initially and people are calling us an emo band and our music, and then another one in our general era is like, say, like All Time Low.
Right.
You'd be hard pressed to find musically a singularity in any way there between those two types of music, and yet somehow both labeled the same genre. So there is a bit of confusion. Hair metal is very specific, right? Like we all know what hair metal is.
Yeah.
But
it has to do with hair.
The most nebulous.
Do you have to have lovely hair to be in hair metal? Sorry to cut you off, but this is an important question. Is having beautiful hair.
I believe you had to at one time.
Okay.
As made evident by the fact that every single band tours until they die, and most of the major festivals and tours in the United States are headlined by 97-year-old men. They may not have the hair anymore.
Yeah. And I have to ask this because we were just talking about emo. How much does the term screamo make you unhappy when you hear it?
I could give a shit about any of it. You have to understand, Nick, I'm not a good person to talk to about that because I have been what you might call hated. My band has been not beloved by many.
You're lovely. And Andy, I've had so many people on the show, and you are one of my favorites and also one of my community's favorites. You are lovely.
That's very nice of you to say, Nick. And I'm glad that my personality could be better than how many of you feel about my music. But I will say that the term screamo is to me the same thing as any number of sort of small-minded insults that were thrown, right? So the fact that those terms have morphed into terms of endearment, I find positive. But when someone is you know, wearing, and this is not a diss at this band because this was a thing that happened on our first Warped Tour, and we actually ended up becoming friendly with the band. But if someone's wearing an Acacia Strain shirt and they're throwing something at me, I'm not really concerned about like what's the verbiage that they're using to describe me.
It's about the object, not the verbs.
Yeah. So if I got hung up on like terms as a thing to upset me, we would have been done a long time ago.
Okay, well that's fair. Well, talking about terms, let's talk about the new track that you guys have coming out, because I'm excited. You guys got a new track coming out, Bleeders, which I love the promo. You guys got the Sweetie Todd, you got the little, is it a pocket knife, or like what's the little,
the straight razor, as used by barbers,
right? Have you used that yet?
I have an antique one that our bass player got me in I think Colombia. This is a 100-year-old straight razor.
Damn. Here. Is it?
Yeah.
Have you tried it?
I don't know if you're looking at that, Nick. Do you think I tried that 100-year-old serrated blade on anything? It's pretty rusty.
I mean, dude, sometimes when you just got to.
You're not far away. If you're interested in getting tetanus, come on over to Tampa and we'll try it out.
We'll try. Just a full shave set. That's a good way to promo if you guys want. I'll come by. We'll do a quick shave, do a chat, and there you go. That's it.
Yeah. So, Sweeney Todd, I don't know if you can see because I don't know how much of the camera is on me, but I have this right here is the Sweeney Todd from the original cast recording.
That's sick.
An abridged version of my history with the character is it was the first musical thing that I loved.
Right.
Kind of before my love of like the Misfits and AFI and all those bands sort of got me into punk rock. Before my little kid era love of like Kiss and Motley Crue and AC/DC got me into classic rock. Before any of that, my first real introduction into singing a song was via the original cast recording from 1979 of Sweeney Todd. My dad had the CD when I was a kid, and I was obsessed with it. I thought it was scary and fun, and you know, I've been pretty open in my career about the fact that, you know, I've always struggled with, you know, ultimately it manifests for me as ADHD, but I've always struggled with a lot of these sort of OCD things and histrionics, and I was really afraid of a lot of stuff when I was a little kid, and the first way that I found to deal with those fears was to find fun, kitschy versions of those scary things. And that was really a big reason why the Misfits became so important to me, and that kind of like the horror movie aesthetic, because it was, or Gene Simmons Spitting the Blood, it was approachable versions of scary stuff that were sort of my in. And Sweeney Todd fucking terrified me when I was a little kid. You know, because the original recording, like they're using really crazy dissonant melodies, and it's meant to make it's you know, it's comedic and it's kitschy in its way, but Sondheim was a genius in that it is frightening. You know, the opening music that we use as our intro tape on this most recent record or on this most recent tour is scary sounding, and so it was always something that was a real passion of mine, and so it took years to figure out a way to do it, but just as everyone has asked for, a Black Veil Bride Sweeney Todd themed EP is coming. That I'm not sure anyone asked for it, but it's something that I wanted to do, and I think people will like it.
It's if you want to do it, there you go. We're good. You're good to go. That's the vibe. But I think that's really that's fun, because I mean there's other bands that also, like, you know, I know Ice Nine Kills does with movies specifically, and they really thematically like commit, you know, fully commit. Sure. And I haven't seen, I don't know if you guys do a video or whatnot. I don't know. I haven't seen, but I'm assuming you guys, like, you go in and you commit, because I know how you guys are, and especially when you write, like, I can tell you guys have concepts, you have ideas, and you don't have asked that. You do it all in, you do it proper. So, like,
no, we have whole-assed this entire thing to the point where, you know, on the EP that'll be coming later on, that we did a cover of the song My Friends from the musical. You know, the song Bleeders itself it was the idea that I find myself observing constantly how detached I feel from other people, whether that's, you know, my peers, or the idea of like fame, or all these things. The older I get, the harder it is for me to see any of that as enviable. And how so many people in their lives try so hard to try to have some form of perceivable status or make themselves out to be something that is in some way better than other people because of their the things that they've gained by virtue of things that they primarily had nothing to do with. And many of that, you know, realistically, I would say that in my position, I try really hard and I love what we do.
Right.
And I also know that when I was younger, it was to our benefit that, you know, people liked the way that I looked or whatever, you know what I mean? And there are things that in some ways get people in a position where they start to trick themselves into thinking that, their quote unquote fame or their ability is somehow greater than a human being. And I've always really had an issue with that. And I like to look at what we do as hard work, a little bit of luck, and drive and tenacity. And I've always tried to make sure that our audience knows that nothing that I do is not composite of anything that they couldn't do. I just obsess over this, and I've been given this platform, so I try really hard to make stuff that I think is worth a shit.
Right.
And so I became increasingly frustrated with the idea that there are certain people in the world who perceive themselves as more than others, and that we have such a culture that's predicated on idol worship, hero worship. You see it with politics. People put all their hopes and dreams into a person that they've never met and doesn't give a shit about them or their family. And, you know, it has become so much that people represent teams or ideologies that are now the totality of someone's personality.
Yes.
And so
instead of
I got really interested in the idea that, you know, it's a basic phrase and an idea that we all bleed, right? You know, everybody has that sort of thing about us, and that we are human innately. I think that most people are trying to be good in some way or do the right thing. I think that a lot of us don't know what we're dealing with when it comes to day to day. And I think beyond anything else, when you put yourself on that pedestal and you put yourself in a position where people are looking to you as if you know everything or you have the answers, it's a very slippery slope, and it's dangerous because none of us do. And I want people to know that I struggle every day with knowing what the fuck to do. I struggle with whether I'm certain of something that I'm doing, or decision making, or, you know, all that kind of stuff. You know, I'm somebody who I don't even get on social media. I post and then I generally just log out, because the idea of dealing with seeing what people say about me or all that is just it's too much for me. It's not good for my mental health. So this idea that I kept thinking about was, we all do what it is we need to get through life, to try to find joy and happiness and become happy with ourselves. And yet, and while we all have these virtuous aspirations, we all also like harbor resentments and hatreds. Like, you know, there are like 5 to 10 people that I hate, like, you know, like, and by the way, with good reason. And they may hate me as well, and probably do. But there are people that whether it's through my career or my life, whatever it is, that you come in contact with that have done something wrong to you or fuck you over in some way, that even if you want to be so above it and so virtuous and act as if you're not, you can't help it. You're like, but fuck that person, right? Like, and you can't shake that sometimes. So I wanted to write lyrically, I wanted a song that represents both the idea that I know that I'm not better than somebody else, but also like, fuck that person.
Right.
And, you know, and it's okay to feel that way. And it's okay to still want to be it doesn't make you a bad person because you want kind of revenge on a situation, or you want to prove yourself to somebody, or whatever.
Like, you know, I think it's human to kind of feel like that. And people that have done you wrong, you know, don't always feel the best of them. You know, it's not the best feeling. And I love talking with you too, because you are, and I've always, you know, watching interviews even way back when, like, you're just a fun, humble dude. But I love that, like, you don't like take shit. You know what I mean? Like, you're humble, you're humble and chill. But like, if someone, you know, messes with you, like, I know, like, you'll just be like, what's wrong with you? You know, like, you won't.
Or I'll yell at people at an award show and body shame them in a regrettable way.
Regrettable, but you know what I mean. Like, it's something where, like, you are very human, and a lot of musicians, especially, you know, at your level or whatever, like celebrities and people with, you know, following and all that, they don't have that humility, you know, that like they're not very self-aware. They're just like, hey, I'm here and a lot of people really like me, so I'm just gonna stand on the big pedestal and make everyone love me and live in fantasy land, and you know, everyone else is wrong and I'm right. And that's something that I see a lot with
But I think it's a difficult position, though. I feel like when you're a kid, and a lot of us come from a place of we were the weird kid or the different kid or whatever, and then you're put in this position, especially like I know in my experience, I was so young. I didn't know who the fuck I was when people started wanting my autograph. I was a teenager. So like I was mimicking personality traits of other people essentially and trying to build who I was. And I think the tricky thing that we have now is there's an expectation of anybody who's famous on any level to not only be a thought leader, but also be somebody who is on the right side of everything and thinks the right things and says the right stuff. And it's wonderful if that's the case. But the truth of the matter is that the totality of existence is entirely gray. Yeah. And for all of us, I think all of us in the world would benefit from having an understanding that the person next to you is struggling with 75 things that are under the surface the way that you are. And there should not be an expectation that just because someone wrote a song that you like, that they suddenly know more about things than you do. They're just as dumb about things as, you know, you might think you are. And they're just as smart about things as you think you are. They are composite of you in every way. The only difference is that maybe they have this one skill set. So I do think that I find myself sometimes being a little bit of a man out of time in a way, because I view what I do as a very different thing. Like I want to curate and present the version of myself that I want you to see, and that is that in that way that I liked to go see, you know, AFI as a kid, and you'd see Davey Havok for like 2 seconds walk away. You know what I mean? And I'm much more personable in that way, and I enjoy meeting our audience.
Well, you're very charismatic, and you like are alive, like, you know, like you have.
Sure, but I think the distinction is I also don't give a shit if you know what I ate for breakfast. Like I don't want to show you everything about my day, because I'm just trying to get through my day anyway. Like, and so to put on a presentation then also makes you in a place where there's an expectation that you have the defining thought on everything that happens in the world, or you have the best thing to say about everything. Because why wouldn't you? You've shown us every goddamn thing that you thought today otherwise. So surely you have a thought on this or that. And I think that that's a tricky place to be. So it's, by the way, I mean, this is obviously not something that in this day and age, when I go into meetings with like social media teams, they're not thrilled about it. I'm like, well, should we really aim to put out the dumbest thing possible just so we have something all day long? Like, is that really what our job is?
Yeah.
But that's sort of what it is now. People expect low-level, uncurated, shitty content from people so that they can feel a connection to them that is entirely orchestrated by the team of this person, but feels more personal. Well, and Andy, in my mind, I think that that's cheating your audience more.
That's what we do here all day. It's just I don't have a team. That's the difference.
But the distinction is what you're doing is presenting exactly what you want to present. And then what we have on this side of things is, and I'm not saying that this is people that we work with, but it is an expectation that, aren't you going to do that dumb TikTok video where you debase yourself so that you can get more people to watch your music video? Or aren't you going to be whatever? And so
you got to fight the ocean. You want to promote the new song. Go fight the ocean.
But that's what I enjoy is like, I do TikTok in a way where I kind of like to make fun of the whole idea.
Yes.
A little bit, as we've shown the last time that I was on here.
Yes.
But and again, I'm not judging the artists that do this. I just think I post on Instagram like once every blue moon because it's something that I want you to see. And I don't feel like I need you to know that I'm going to target right now. But if that is something that you want to do, far be it for you, but far be it for me to stop, which is that I believe that on land, I could fight and defeat a shark.
Okay. That's fair.
And I've said this a lot. I've told my wife this before. This is a thing that I think.
Right. Crocodile. Oh, alligator. Yeah. Like what's like, so shark, no problem. You know, you can just run behind it. What's it going to do? You know, flipper? No chance.
They all sort of weird me out a little bit. Like how unlike a dog an animal is, really. That's my scale. Okay. How much like a dog is an animal?
Like you need to have it as like a pet? Like would you have a pet alligator or shark?
The farther away from the shape of a dog, the less interested I am in the animal.
That's fair. Do cats?
Cats are shaped almost exactly like dogs.
They're a little they're with that too, because I feel like a lot of, especially people with platforms, feel like they have to like forcefully almost social pressure or like by their audience that they have to be the end all be all and be like, this is right, this is wrong. But they like, no matter what, even if it's on the political end, you're going to be have half your audience disagree with you 50% of the time. So it's this weird balance, even if you,
I mean, the only problem with that is that it is truly, it's a different world. And I think that there's a little bit of a cop-out nature to artists being like, well, I don't have any opinions on anything because I don't want to alienate half of my audience.
That's
but
true.
by the same token, for me, I exist in a world where I really am unconnected. And I never was that way earlier in my life. I was always very much wanting to be abreast of everything that's happening. And I reached a point where creating stuff and, sitting in this room and painting and drawing and making costumes and looking at my fucking toy collection or whatever else, and hanging out with my wife and our cats and like living my life became so much more important for me and for my mental health than making sure I knew everything that was happening. And then as you realize, as time goes by and the ignorance and the way that you feel of being ignorant is sort of replaced with actual conversations. So I can talk to somebody in real life and talk to someone about the events of the world in a way that is humanizing, as opposed to, we all seem to, in this day and age, enter into political or social conversations ready with our version of exactly what it's like. Everyone has taken a bunch of cocaine, because cocaine's a drug where you're just waiting for the other person to be done talking so that you can say the thing you want to say. And that's sort of how everyone is now. Everyone knows exactly their stance, and they're just either you're going to agree with them or they're waiting for you to finish talking so that they can tell you exactly how they feel about something. And that's not a way to converse, and you don't learn anything that way. So fun. The more I detach from the constant feed of news of everything all the time, the more I find myself able to have conversations with people that I meet or see in real life that are enriching and interesting and human.
Well, you seem like you're in a very like healthy, self-aware space, which I think is amazing, because it's hard for many musicians and people nowadays because they're dealing with all the stuff and always on and checking what the fuck is happening so intensely and feeling like like all this pressure, which I love that you seem like just very
well. I think one thing you realize is that when you're in a position where you have a fan base, no matter what you do and say, there's going to be people that you cannot make happy. And it took me a long time, and for years I'd be like, well, if I remember there was many years ago, there was a situation where there was one person that I'd always see just saying all this negative stuff all the time. And I remember, in those days, there was so much less. So you would see, and your feeds were in sequential order. And so like I would get on Twitter or whatever, and I'd see my replies. And there was just, everything was smaller numbers. So you could start to recognize people's faces or whatever. And I remember this one account that I'd see all the time, and then I remember when they would say that they were going to a show, and I would make such an effort to, okay, they're going to come to the meet and greet, and I'm going to show them that I'm a really nice person and that I really appreciate them, and they're going to stop saying mean stuff about me or my choices or my clothes or all this other stuff. And I remember one time it being like where I did such a good job, and now their whole opinion's going to change. Well, like a fool, I remember checking social media like later the next day and being like, did they say great stuff? And of course, it was just about how fake I was and how I'm pretending to be nice and all this. And I thought, okay, I see you can't win this.
You can't.
So it was, I've been very fortunate that not a single person ever has come up to me and said a negative thing to me in person. It all exists on the internet. It may be playing a festival, people flipped us off in the early days or whatever, but when it comes to like, if I'm at the mall or if I'm at Target or whatever, nobody's walking up and saying like, I hate your band or you suck or whatever. It's just positive stuff. So, and I think that the hardest thing for artists to accept is that sometimes within their own fandom, there's even more vitriol because people feel so connected to it, because you're not you're not really a person. You're a version, and it's the same thing with me. Like as a kid, I always bring it back to AFI because that was the first band that it went AFI and then Alkaline Trio, and then Alkaline Trio became my everything, and AFI sort of faded for me. But I remember as a kid being frustrated with AFI because they changed their sound and their image and all this, and I had all these big opinions about them as people based on fucking nothing.
Right.
But it's impossible to not have that when these pictures of these people are all over your life and it means so much to you. You develop opinions that are strong, and some artists get mad about that. And I think that when I realize that I'm not mad about it is when I realize that it's not for me. Just like fan fiction isn't for me. It's not meant for me to read. When someone asks me like, what do you think of sexual fan fiction? My answer is always like, well, why would I be reading it? It's not written for me. It's written for fans to enjoy with each other because that's the thing that they enjoy.
Right.
And when you, as the person who is the subject of the conversation, enter into a conversation about you that the people who are having that conversation don't realize that you're there, it's a fucking weird thing. So that it's better to just pull back, because then you won't see that there's a certain element of everyone's fan base that will be mad at them because that's part of the narrative that they've written for it.
Do you spend, because you see you're very introspective, and I love that. Like, do you spend a lot of the day just like thinking and being in your kind of head, or like just chilling and like understanding the world, life, interactions, all of that, or is it just?
I mostly think about weird noises in songs.
Are the weird noises in the songs?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, thank God, Lilith and I were talking about this the other day. The two of us have that same thing. So thank God we found each other, because 90% of what happens in this house is like I'll be singing the theme song to the commercial for a place called The Beach in Cincinnati in the 90s or something like that.
Right.
Or making up a song about the food that I'm making, or making up a song about our cats, or making up a song about terrible nicknames that I'm giving Lilith, or whatever it is.
Right.
So I would love to tell you that I'm some sort of genius philosopher who's sitting and contemplating the world around me. But the reality is I'm mostly just thinking of like fart noises and beeps. That's
fair. Is it ever like, do you still get tripped out? Like, oh damn, like I'm Andy from Black Veil. Like, does that ever? Do you like? You think a lot, right? But do you ever disconnect from like, okay, I am Andy, and I am Andy from Black Veil. The people that when they see me in public or something, they're like, oh my god, it's Andy. You know what I mean? Like, does that still trip you out? Like, how is that relationship for you, I guess?
Well, I feel really fortunate that anyone gives a shit about me or what I do. I think that if you're lucky in your life, you get to do the thing that you wanted to do. And my biggest dream was to get to do this. And the fact that I'm 33 years old and people are still allowing me the opportunity to do this, I just feel thankful for it. I don't know that I have any part of me that feels blown away by it, in the sense that I have had a singular focus, and I've worked really hard all the time. And I also know that it takes luck in the early days to get to a place where people know who the fuck you are. I think that every single day, probably 80 million people write songs that are better than any song I've ever written, but mine got heard, and for whatever the luck of the draw, maybe theirs didn't. It's a crapshoot. So I feel more lucky than anything, and I feel really fortunate. But I also know that with that comes the tenacity to work hard all the time and to deliver on the promise that I've given people, that I want to entertain them. So if they give me the platform to do it, I will bust my ass and make sure I do it.
Yeah, because you seem like you seem hungry still, which is when bands have done it, they've been in it for so many years, and they've like made it, good to go. You guys probably retire if you want and be sad and live life and all that. But you seem like someone that's still like always looking to do more, that is hungry, that is like, sure, like I'm at this level, or we're here, as a band, and I'm here as an individual, but like we can, like, let's keep going. Like, is that how you are? Like, what is that mindset, I guess?
I mean, I think there's two parts to it. One is that's just sort of how I function. If I don't have a project that I'm working on, it's just, again, from a mental health perspective, it's very hard to sit with all my thoughts and all my freakouts and things. So it's better to have something to work on.
Right.
But I would say the other part of it is, sometimes the story that's told about, what's now called the Nepo babies or whatever, right? But it's a story, it's an age as old, a story as old as time, right? Someone who's born with a lot doesn't feel the need to work for something.
Right.
And I think that there are a lot of bands from our era who, from the minute that they came out, they were sort of crowned the princes of the world, and given every opportunity and told how great they were. And so many of them rested on their laurels and stopped trying, because if you're told immediately how great you are, it's very hard to have anywhere to go from there.
Right.
Fortunately for me, when we came out, people were throwing sandwiches and shit balls at me. So, it was a little bit different experience where, Kerrang had us on the cover as the most hated band in the universe. I'll never forget. Metal Sucks had the headline when we were working on our first record, the shit stain on the asshole of the universe was what they called us.
Fuck.
Fuck? So when you're a teenager and you're just trying your hardest and that's what's being said about you,
right,
and then you like go to an award show and everyone's booing, or you play a festival and everybody's throwing shit at you, or like, I'll never shake that. And until the day that that changes, which I don't know if it ever will, I'll always feel like we're fighting against something, and I'll always have that like, I'm gonna fucking show you mentality, and I can't help it.
Right. It's great because you like, and again, I'm not just saying, so you guys make bangers. Like I've listened to y'all for many years, and it's like, it's always fun, and I love it has the heavy metal edge, and your voice is obviously super unique, and you add the riffs are always fucking great, and like no matter what, whenever you guys drop a track, even nowadays, I'm like, all right, I'm excited. I'm gonna listen to it. Like let's go. Like let's see what's kind of going on.
Thank you, Nick.
So it's I'm excited for Bleeders too. By the way, chat.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think a fair amount of that is, and this is, it's many things, but I think a lot of it boils down to a lot of misogyny. We had a lot of young girls that were fans of us in the very beginning of the band, especially, and the metal community has a long history of anything that girls like must somehow not be valid. And I think that it's grown a lot now, and that's not so much the case, but you can't really shake the introductory thing, where people will hear us or come to a show and see us and they go, oh, this isn't at all because the people listen with their eyes or what they were told. And most of that is based upon the fact that there's this now very clearly incorrect idea that the music industry had, which was that bands that have a younger audience must graduate to a mature male audience if they're going to stick around, because for some reason I guess they thought that
the youth is what keeps you going,
somehow less valid.
Like the younger generation listening to your music, that's what's gonna keep everything.
But people understand that more now than they did a decade ago, and that's a good thing. But I think that the hidden thing people don't like to talk about as much is that almost all of the vitriol that was placed upon, let's call them like the group of 6 or 7 of us, like metalcore bands that came out of our era,
right?
The vitriol from the metal community was primarily based upon the fact that a lot of young girls listened to these bands, and in their minds they couldn't wrap their head around the fact that was not somehow a disservice to the music. So I think the fact that we've moved beyond that to a large degree is very good, but it just goes part and parcel with the fact that we genuinely were making music for people who felt disenfranchised, from people who themselves felt disenfranchised. Right. And I was never selling loneliness to lonely people or trying to cash in on an idea. I was a kid very similar to the age of our audience and speaking about things that they felt themselves.
Yeah, that makes sense, man. You guys have had such a wild journey. I got to give you mad credit again, dealing with so much shit for so many years. Sure. And being a band too, it's not like you guys do bad things to people, right? Like there's bands that they're shitty people, like something, like they're not the best, and they do shitty shitty things to their fans and all of that, right? Like, okay, maybe some of the hate for those, like I get it, right? But you guys have always just been just chill. You do your thing, and you're just fun, personable, and it's. If it is just because of the, a lot of young females back in the day following you guys, or if it is like the outfits, and stuff like that, it's just wild. But it's good that nowadays that I think, like, funny enough, as much as TikTok is its own fun plague on the earth, it's a gift, because I feel like it's opened up so much of the younger generation and just everybody, you know, to be
Yeah.
like listening to metal. It doesn't matter. Like you see, you know, there's teenagers that'll throw on like the heaviest of shit, and then followed by like, let's put on like Deftones and like some super chill
Sure.
lo-fi beats, and it's nice nowadays. It's much more like inclusive in that way without it being like forcefully inclusive. It's just like everyone can listen to what the fuck they want, and no one seems to care as
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
as before. Yeah.
I think it's really great because I love seeing how varied our audiences are now in terms of the age ranges and everything. Like it's so different now to what it used to be. Not speaking gender specifically. I just mean to say you have very young people coming to these shows, and we always laugh. I mean, the funny thing that TikTok has done, and you see these trends come back around.
Yeah.
It's always funny for me when we're in a public place and my wife and I will be out and someone will approach us who's like 14 years old and looks like a 14-year-old in 2009,
Right.
like with the hair and the belts and everything. And it's like sort of this thing, how trends come back around. It's like, you know, this sort of stuck in time thing that you see now, because TikTok, you see people that are, you know, their whole vibe is they dress like, you know, 2002 preppy kids or whatever, you know, like it's very interesting to see that. And, it certainly has benefited all of us in the hard rock world, because none of us have really ever been given the shine from the mainstream music world. You know, we exist in this sort of strange place where we've all been able, you know, the bigger bands of our era have been able to sustain careers and continuously grow and get bigger or whatever else, you know, but outside the realm of mainstream fame. You know, look at Ronnie, for example. You know, this is a person who exceedingly successful in terms of crowd size and everything else. Never on the VMAs, never anything like that, you know. And that, you know, Escape the Fate was a band that came from that ilk. Same thing with, you know, obviously Bring Me the Horizon now has more mainstream attention and they've done more in the mainstream, but a similar situation where these are bands that were never top 10 US, all over your TV, everywhere, can't escape them artists that this many years into their career are playing arenas and amphitheaters and everything else. I think it's really a testament to how much more widespread stuff is now.
Yeah. Even like just in the like, not the greats like Metallica, but like the, you know, I guess modern generation 2000 greats, like all the new metal bands, for example. Like it's so wild seeing how big that scene is, and kids are growing up nowadays still discovering as if it's back in the 2000s, like, oh my God, what's Slipknot? What, you know, and like they might discover it through Custer because fucking TikTok, but goddamn, fucking that's
I don't even know what that means. Nick.
You know,
whatever you just said has General Custer, custard, the other type of ice cream.
The other type of ice cream, yes. But it's cool to see just all like the generations growing up with the same music that, I mean, at least I grew up with all that stuff in the 2000s too, and it's like weird, but it's like great. This stuff's still going. And then there's still the modern scene of bands coming up, Spirit Box, Sleep Token, you know, Bad Omens, that are pushing the scene as well. And it seems like much healthier. And I love to see you guys also just continue to do your thing and just have that hunger, never stop having that hunger, and just continue to just be yourselves and make music. And I guess with that, I have like one more little question, because you guys have been going for a long time, and you also were with Sumerian for most of your guys' career?
One record. Two records.
Oh, two records.
One re-release and The Phantom Tomorrow. We were with Universal, the Lava end of Universal for the vast majority of our career.
Right.
And then we did the Restitch These Wounds re-release, re-recording of our first record, and Sumerian released that. And then we did The Phantom Tomorrow with Sumerian.
That makes sense.
And now we are back in the Universal system with Spine Farm, which is a Universal.
Because Spine Farm, I Spine Farm is, they just did, you know, the Sleep Token record and all that stuff. So I know it's always different. It doesn't really matter because the band's going to do what the fuck the band does. But like, does it feel like kind of a new era in that sense of like, all right, let's go, new label, new music, new all of this? Like, are you guys kind of feeling that? Or is it more just like, all right, you know, we're making more music, trying new stuff, and another label who really kind of cares? Like,
well, you know, you always benefit from the people around you, and we've always had great situations around us in terms of people that believed in us. Right. But I would say that Spine Farm, thus far especially, has really shown a tremendous amount of belief in the band and excitement for this release,
Sick.
and has been really aggressively into all the ideas and pushing things as far as we can. And I just feel very fortunate because, as you say, we're a lot of years in our career, and for us to be in a situation where, we're back in the universal world, which is kind of what we're most comfortable with, but also now with people that are new and fresh that we've never worked with before. And it's been amazing. I can't say enough positives so far, and we haven't even released the material yet, but every day there's something new going on in terms of this release, and their level of excitement and enthusiasm is pretty unparalleled. So I'm really excited to see how this goes, and to have a new creative relationship.
Awesome. Well, I'm stoked. And I'm stoked to hear Bleeders. I heard, when I was watching a little docuseries, I was like, oh, I heard the word breakdown. And I was like, okay, let's see what we got.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I heard the word. I heard the word breakdown. I'm like,
no, it's, everybody always says this, but I really think I'll put it this way. I think that it's a great representation of where we are now musically, and kind of where, I think sometimes people want to, when you're this many years in, you go one of two ways. You try to do a fully new thing, or you try to go back and do your past.
Yes.
And I think that we've hit a really good spot where we're incorporating enough new into what we're doing, but we are refining the parts of the band that make Black Veil. I think that sometimes bands people will say, oh, every song sounds the same or whatever for certain bands. And I think that the goal for any band is to try to take your sound and amplify it and grow it and evolve it. And I think that this is a very natural evolution for us musically, and I'm just exceedingly excited about it. So I think if you're a fan of the band, you'll love the song, and I hope new listeners find it and enjoy it.
Let's go. Any plans for yourself, for Andy, not just maybe musically, but also if you have any plans, acting wise or any of that stuff that you can talk about, or is it just going with the flow so far?
There's a lot of that, but nothing I can talk
Nothing
about. Working on a bunch of stuff right now, both on the film side and the comic side, and a lot of things. Most notably, right now, I can hear that one of my cats just got out of the cat box, so that'll be the next thing that I'm.
That'll be the next thing you're starring in.
Shoveling that poop.
We'll check it out on stream, obviously, and see what the fuck is up, obviously. And show the boys the love. If they got EPs, if they got music, come and check it out. If they're on tour near you, go see them live and see Andy's beautiful face roar at you and sing at you right there.
I'll do both.
He does both. He does both. Andy, you're a gem. Thank you so much for coming to hang, bro. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate you.
Have a good day.
Can't wait to do this again.
Yes, thanks, man. Have a beautiful day, dude. See ya.